Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the front line. It's your girl Shamar. We're back in the cabin. Had a very long week, guys. Sorry, I know this is one, the lesson is late, but two, the subject matter has been late. I have been very adamant that at some point I intended to get back to the rightful rulership, right? And I think it's important that every so often we touch base back to this subject because we need to figure out where, as a nation, we went wrong. And as I see it, we went wrong under the headship of some of our kings. We remember that I shared with you guys in the rightful rulership that it was wickedness to ask for a king of our Creator. Our Creator had rescued us out of so many situations. Our Creator was our easer, right? Because we know that word is used more with the Creator than it has ever been with women, right? It's said of women twice, okay? So maybe I go overboard by saying woman is an easer, but it's only been women that term has been used with outside of our Creator and nations that came to help Israel. So this week, I'm a little late, guys. It has been triple digits here. So, last week I told you guys that I was going to start giving you guys some pointers, right, about living off grid. And so we're going to get right into it this week because this is kind of part of why I'm a little bit late this week, guys. It has been triple digits. It has been, well, of course, when it gets triple digits, guys, it's a bit unbearable, right? So I don't think I need to go into all of how uncomfortable it's been, right? But when it's like that, you have to think outside the box. So on one particular day, I had to escape to the forest, which I put up some really good photos from the forest and some good video. While it was triple digits down near the land, in the forest, it was 88 degrees, guys, and it rained. So it was really, really beautiful, and it allowed me to beat the heat, right? So while you're here, you got to get creative ways to beat the heat. I'm trying to work on getting the pool, getting someplace where I can go and just kind of decompress and things like that. I do have a friend who has a pool, so I was able to go over there and cool down, I'm so thankful for that. It's good to have friends, right, guys? So that's how Shamar has been going about trying to cool down and beat the heat. Okay, guys, you just got to get creative, because I don't think it's going to get any cooler, guys. I don't know. I could be wrong. But, okay, so that's why I was late this week. Please forgive me, guys. As the summer goes on, we'll see what we get out of this. And my crew over here, everybody's really good about being patient with me, and I've been late a day or so before too as well. So thank you guys, and thank y'all for pulling up a chair in the cabin and coming over every week to see what's going on over here, right? So this week, like I said, I do not want to get too far off the subject of the rightful rulership, right, guys? Because as we dig into the X and the Y chromosome, we do that because that is also linked to an inheritance, right? Well, Israel has an inheritance. We want to stay focused on the rightful rulership because the rightful rulership, there's a term that Shiloh, guys, that word is, it breaks down to the rightful rulership. And that's why I've termed that whole study the rightful rulership. Okay, guys. It is still a cellular war going on, guys. I'm telling you guys this for a reason, right? So, for us to get into the kingship of Solomon, we have to go back in time a little bit, okay, guys? I have been wanting to deal with this subject for quite a little while now as it pertains to Solomon's lineage, right, guys? Because I told you guys, we are who we have in our veins, right? We have an inheritance. There's a seed war, there's an inheritance, there's a couple of things going on, right? And we've looked at that and in the real world, and we've looked at that in the cellular world. And on the front line, we see a duality of both going on. We see it happening in the real world, some would say the macro, and we could say we see it in the cellular world, some would say the micro, okay? As it pertains to Solomon, we're going to go back in time before we deal with Solomon. Because before we can broach Solomon, I think it's really imperative that we discuss Solomon's genealogy. Okay? We know we're looking for her seed, but we also know that her seed will have enmity with the serpent seed, right? So let's talk a little bit about the background of Solomon. We know who his father is. His father is none other than the second king of Israel, David. And his mother is who I would like to actually spend some time on today discussing, because that's going to give us an idea of what inheritance Solomon has, right? Because we know that epigenetic memory and epigenetic markers are passed down through the maternal line, right, guys? And we know on the front seed, we know on the front line, we have been looking for her seed, right? Because that's what Torah told us in Genesis 3, that it's going to be her seed. We put a spotlight on the fact that the Dum Diversus was issued to vanquish Sarah's sons, guys, right? So we see a pattern here that's taking place, but there's going to be enmity between her seed and another seed, right? So let's talk about Bathsheba. Whether you guys know it or not, there was some interesting things going on with Bathsheba. Okay. And I found some great articles. So fair use, let me say that really, really early, guys, because I tend to forget that, right? Fair use for the purposes of education and criticism. All right. So a while back, I told you guys that we absolutely had to get into the history, or as much as we could as it pertained to Bathsheba, right? For many reasons, right? Because I told you, after David dies, Bathsheba basically kind of serves as Queen Mother, right? And that's a term. You see that I've titled this folder Queen Mother, right? Let's get into it, guys. I got to take a sip off of something to drink before we get started. Excuse me, guys. Okay. I'm going to go to 2 Samuel and 11, and I went ahead, guys, and pulled in the KJV for this version. All right, so let's get into that for a second. I don't want to keep promising you guys to get into the rightful rulership and then kicking the can down the road. It is going to be a lengthy project, but I want to do that because I need you guys to see where we went left, how we removed the creator from being the person that chose our kings and allowed someone to usurp the throne and put who they chose to go on the throne. And I clearly showed you guys that there was a pattern that the creator was choosing. He was not allowing. We don't see in Torah where he said, "Hey, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to let you go ahead and do this from here on out. We don't see him appoint anyone to take over that role. So how do we go from the creator choosing to now David appoints Solomon? So we have to get into this, guys, because I want you guys to see for yourself in Torah. It's very simple. We did not follow the Creator's commandments. We did not seek out the Creator as it pertained to our leaders. We stood on the sidelines and we let a king run amok. We let a king just. We started calling him our Lord. You understand what I'm saying? So, guys, let's get into this background of Bathsheba, okay? And it will pull in some of David, right? Because it has to, but the focus is not necessarily on David today because we've already dealt with David as far as I'm concerned. But I do want to discuss Bathsheba, so he'll come into this just a tad bit, okay, guys? All right, so we're in 2 Samuel 11. This is the KJV. All right, guys, I'm going to start right at 2 Samuel 11 and 1, right? Let's just go on through it. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab, his servant, with him, and all Israel. And they destroyed the children of Ammon, and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. And it came to pass, in an evening tide, that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers, and took her, and she came in unto him. And he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness. And she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, and said, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when David was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, Go down to thy house, and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house, with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, Camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, The ark in Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servant of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house to eat and to drink, and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. And David said to Uriah, Tarry here today, also and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him. And he made him drunk. And at evening, when he went out to lie on his bed with the servant of his lord, but went not down to his house. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. And it came to pass, when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war. and charged the messenger, saying, When thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king, and if so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, Wherefore approacheth ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight? Knew ye not that ye would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech, the son of Jerubbesheth? Yeah, Jerubbesheth. Oh God, we're going with that. Did not a woman cast a piece of a millstone upon him from the wall, that he died in Thebes? Why went ye nigh the wall? Then say thou, Thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him. And the messenger said unto David, Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us into the field, and were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said unto the messenger, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee. So the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou them. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. Now, isn't this something, guys? I want to go back up here real quick to verse 14 right here. You know, you had someone willing to not spend time with his wife because this is how loyal he was to David. And he actually carried the letter that sealed his fate, guys. I never noticed that right here. He carried the letter. Uriah had to carry his letter that would seal his fate. This is unbelievable. All right, I just want to focus on that for a second, but let's go to the next book. Because Bathsheba and David, they have a child together, you know, and we want to talk about how what they did displeased, the Creator. So we're in 2 Samuel 12:1. And the Lord sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, There were 2 men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceedingly many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which is a female lamb, which he had bought and nourished up, and it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man that was come unto him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, As the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. You see, I anointed thee king over Israel right here. Keep telling you guys, this was the Creator's role. This was not. And so if he's upset right here, how do we go a few chapters over to him now, not being any upset anymore and giving this role to David now? You know what, David, I'm not mad anymore. You know what? You go ahead and choose the next king. How do we go from that to this? From this to that? Do you see what I'm saying, guys? He's telling you right here, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine hand. See, Uriah was killed with the sword of Ammon. The children, he used those children to strike down Uriah. He used that war. So now that blood is on David's hands. The Creator's telling him right here. Now therefore the sword, right here in verse 10, now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house. Because never, you see, never. We know what never means, right? Okay. Because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. The Creator says right here that David has despised him. Thou hast despised me, and taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. What was it about Bathsheba? These are strong words. The Creator says, you've despised me and taken this wife to be thy wife. Thus said the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. Did that not happen? Did Absalom not lie with the concubines on the rooftop, guys? For verse 12, for thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted, and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the earth. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the seventh day that the child died. And the servants of God feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How would he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel. I didn't know we could anoint ourselves. Okay. And changed his apparel and came into the house of the Lord and worshiped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread before him, and he did eat. Then said his servants unto him, what thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive, but when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. And when he said, while the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he's dead, wherefore shall I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her. And she bare a son. And he called his name Solomon. And the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet. And he called his name Jedediah, because of the Lord. And Joab fought against Rabbah, the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. Okay, well, I don't want to get further into this thing with David, right? Because I want to focus on Solomon, right? But it was, take note that he's also named Jedediah by Nathan, okay? Okay, so guys, this is how Solomon comes to be, okay? David has this first child with Bathsheba. After the scandal, I mean, this was every bit of a soap opera, guys. This had to have been like the very first soap opera in the world, okay? You have a woman that apparently, from the way Nathan describes it, was treated very well by Uriah. And instead, she's bathing on a rooftop. Who bathes on a rooftop? In the sight of other men. There's no modesty in that. Okay, guys? So, would even the idea that she might possibly be in the sight of other men, that should have weighed on her. And this is not the behavior of a becoming woman, okay? This is not the behavior of a righteous woman. You understand what I'm saying? To not display some modesty and to bathe behind your four walls, where there's no one that could see you outside of your husband. These are some of the behaviors that Bathsheba engaged in, right? Remember I told you guys she was afraid for her life. Remember Nathan told her, let me advise you, right? We're going to get back into that story too, though. But I wanted to show you guys just how Solomon came into this world, right? So first the son is born that out of this unlawful union, right? It does not appear that she mourned significantly long for Uriah. I mean, she turned around and was married, it says, to David. So, yeah, that just was not a good look on Bathsheba. Okay, she surely didn't take the time necessary to mourn for her husband. Right here, Nathan tells her that he needs to advise her to save the life of herself and her son. Why would he need to advise her? What were they going to do? Were they going to stone this adulteress? What were they going to do? She knew uh, that she was definitely in line to get, I guess we could just say, like, ran up on. She knew. She knew. It says so right here, right? Right here, it says in verse 11, right? We're in 1 Kings 1 and 11. Wherefore Nathan spoke unto Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Hast thou not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, doth reign, and David our Lord knoweth it not? Now therefore, come, let me, I pray thee, give thee counsel, that thou mayest save thine own life and the life of thy son Solomon. Right, this is actually where they go in there to lie to David about David saying that Solomon would reign on the next, would reign in his stead, right? All right, well, let's go over here let's talk a little bit more about Bathsheba, right? So let me go into this. Is this the article I want, guys? I do apologize. I should have had this set up probably a little better. Oh, you know, This is a really good article right here. But before we get, well, no, let's go ahead and get into it. Bathsheba, the real story. Another thing, too, guys, is Bathsheba's name. Bathsheba is actually married to Uriah, but from what I'm looking at, it looks as if her father also plays a role in David's army as one of David's mighty men, too. So there's a background with Bathsheba that some say that she was actually of a noble birth, right? I've heard that her name translates to daughter of the oath. Well, what oath, guys? What oath? Was this a blood oath? I mean, these are the only oaths that we keep hearing about back in this during this timeline, right? Okay. We know it wasn't an oath to the Creator, right? Because we'll get back into what she says. All right, but she has a background that's really linked to these mighty men. Okay, and that's pretty curious to me. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Bathsheba. So I found this article, and I actually like this article, so let's read along, guys, about Bathsheba. One of the advantages of paying very close attention to the details in the Bible, especially chronological and genealogical details, is that they can shed light on situations that don't seem to make much sense apart from them. One such situation is that of Bathsheba. It appears that Bathsheba willingly cooperated with David in adultery. There is nothing to indicate that she cried out or rejected him in any way. 2 Samuel 11 and 4, right? They get together. Are we authorized, however, to expect the Bible to record such a protest if she made it? As we read the story, we find that Uriah protests when David tries to get him to go home to his wife. Uriah's protest served to highlight David's sin, his sin of not going out to fight as the king was supposed to do. If David had been with the ark in the field, he also would have been under conditions of holiness that would have prevented him from having sex with his wives. This is according to the law in Deuteronomy 23 and 10 and Exodus 19 and 15. This is what the article says, right? In 2 Samuel 13, we find the rape of Tamar by Amnon. We are told explicitly of her protest, which only served to highlight Amnon's sin. So given that such protests are part of the overall story, why don't we read of a protest from Bathsheba? Right. Do you hear what this article is saying? It's showing you guys that if there were a protest that had been made, it would have been included in there to highlight David's sin. And as a matter of fact, that Nathan would not have come to him with that story, okay, about how this ewe lamb was treated so well and, all this great stuff. It would have been a whole different story, So given, we're right here, guys. So given that such protests are part of the overall story, why don't we read of the protest from Bathsheba? She should have said, "No, my lord, do not do this thing." Then when David forced her, we would see his sin in all its horror. But we don't read anything like that. Everything indicates cooperation on her part. As we shall see, part of the reason we don't have recorded such a protest is that adultery is not David's primary sin, and the text wants to keep us focused on what that sin was. So are we to assume that she was a willing adulteress? If so, why is she not punished? Why does Nathan only threaten David? There's an answer to this question, but we can only see if we take a careful study of genealogy, and name list. All right, chronology and genealogy. The answer begins with the fact that Bathsheba was the granddaughter of one of David's chief counselors, Antiophel. Her father, Eliam, was one of David's 30 mighty men. Is this Antiophel that went into, I think this is the one, is this the one that went into Absalom's home under the guise of being there to advise him? I don't want to get off track, guys, but I'm wondering there. Okay, her father, Eliam, we're here, guys, was one of David's 30 mighty men. Remember, guys, I told you that. This suggests that Bathsheba was a lot younger than David. We can become much more specific. To begin with, we notice that 3 times Solomon is said to have been quite young when he became king. And it lists the scriptures here. It's 1 Kings 3 and 7, 1 Chronicles 22 and 5, 29 and 1. Young in this context is young compared to David when he became king at the age of 30. For in Chronicles, it is David who speaks. We can assume he was at least 20, but not much more. Let us assume that Solomon was 20. That means he was born when David was 50, for David lived 70 years. This was at the midpoint of David's 40-year reign. Another event happened about this time, which forms a second witness to our chronological suggestion, the rape of Tamar. We are told that Amnon and Absalom were born around the same time. After David became king at Hebron, let us put their births when David was 31. Amnon must be old enough to have entered adolescence and old enough to contemplate rape as a possibility, something unlikely in a boy only 15 or 16 years old. In David's 50th year, Amnon would have been about 19. We are told that the rape of Tamar happened shortly after the affair with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah. About 12 years later, we come to the revolt of Absalom. So the rape of Tamar could not have happened much later than David's 50th year. 15th year? Yeah, 50th year. Moreover, since Ahithophel was still alive at the time of Absalom's revolt, we cannot press the revolt forward much farther than this. We cannot push the rape back much earlier in David's reign either, or else Amnon becomes too young for this to be a real possibility. So right around David's 50th year emerges as the time of the rape of Tamar. All right, this is the article is just trying to get a timeline of David's age and how old these people could have been around the time that these things were taking place, right? Because the Torah does not specifically hone in on ages for these folks. So, all right. Absalom waited 2 years and then murdered Amnon for the rape of his sister. We notice that Absalom was clearly over 20 years of age at the time, since he already had his own flocks and household. All right, this was the right, I guess, of at the age of 20, you get the rights to the household. So it told us that Amnon had the rights to the household. Absalom had the rights to the household. So this is how the writer of this article is associating that he must have been near about 20 years old. All right. If my reconstruction is approximately correct, and Amnon raped Tamar when the former was 19, then Absalom was probably 18 at that time. He waited 2 years until he came of age and could act. Absalom was probably 20 when he slew Amnon. Absalom was exiled for 3 years. He lived in Jerusalem apart from the palace life for 2 years. Thereafter, after 4 full years, he led his revolt. This means Absalom's revolt happened 11 to 12 years after the rape of Tamar. We'll go with 12 and have David 62 years old. Okay. This, and I like this because this is showing you that, like, Josephus' writing had some inconsistencies. You know, this article right here is telling you that it doesn't like the timeline that Josephus used because it would have pushed the years back way too young. Okay? All right. Right. Ahithophel is the one who served as an advisor to Absalom. He is the liar that snuck into Absalom's house, lying on the creator. Remember, guys? Yep. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had that right. Right. Now, at the time of the revolt, Ahithophel was an old man, but still able to serve as an advisor to Absalom. Let us make Ahithophel roughly 74 years at age at this time. Nowhere does the text tell us why Ahithophel supported Absalom, but we can easily guess that he was alienated over David's treatment of his granddaughter and her husband. Now, the following chart assumes 20 years between generations and helps establish roughly the age of Bathsheba when David took her. Okay, so you see over here they have Bathsheba as possibly 21 years old at the time of the seduction. You have Tamar's rape. Bathsheba is 22. At the time of Absalom's revolt, Bathsheba is possibly 34. Of course, these ages are approximate, but they are approximately correct. Considering their differences in age and the fact that David was king, it is not hard to imagine that David simply overwhelmed Bathsheba. To summarize the chronological argument, Antiophel was Bathsheba's grandfather, and Eliam served with David before David became king. Eliam must be a fairly accomplished warrior at the time David becomes king. Since Antiophel was still alive at the time of Absalom's revolt, we must put that revolt as close to the beginning of David's reign as possible. The ages of Amnon and Absalom, however, make it impossible to put the rape earlier than about 20 years into David's reign. At the same time, given the facts about Antiophel and Eliam, we cannot put the seduction of Bathsheba earlier in David's reign, or else she becomes too young. If we make her older, then Antiophel becomes too old to be on the scene with Absalom. Thus, sometime close to the 20th year of David's reign became necessary for this sad event. Finally, 2 Samuel 13:1 implies, though it does not flatly state, that Amnon's rape of Tamar happened shortly after David's sin with Bathsheba. Clearly, this is important, guys, this statement that this writer makes right here. Clearly, the firstborn royal prince thought he could get away with this because his father had done so. Do you hear what that man just said in this article? I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but listen. It says that because David, because the royal prince witnessed his father steal another woman from one of his mighty men and get away with it, that he thought that he could get away with raping his sister, his half-sister. This is what this statement is saying right here, right? Finally, 2 Samuel 13:1 implies, though it does not flatly state, that Amnon's rape of Tamar happened shortly after David's sin with Bathsheba. Clearly, the firstborn royal prince thought he could get away with this because his father had done so. In summary, the seduction of Bathsheba happened sometime around the 18th or 19th year of David's reign. The rape of Tamar and the birth of Solomon happened a couple of years later, probably in David's 20th year. All right? David's sin. I don't really want to get into David's sin right now. Maybe. Yeah, because this actually shows you that I think David knew who Bathsheba was. That whole, is this Eliam's daughter? You know, that just sounds like to me like, is this the same girl that I saw that was young and now it's gotten older? Oh my gosh, look at her now. It didn't sound like he wasn't sure if it was his daughter. It just sounded like, is this the same girl? Did she grow up? Did she come into her womanhood? You know, they threw a virgin up in the room with David and they never said how old this virgin was. Okay? So, David's sin. Antiophel was one of David's chief counselors, and Eliam was one of his chief soldiers. Eliam apparently had been with David from the time he was in the wilderness, before he became king. Yes, he was. This emerges from 2 Samuel 23, verse 34, identifies Eliam as one of the 30 mighty men. This is what I'm saying, guys. He had to have known who she was. Sorry. This is his... Listen, the 30 men, it's a small group. It's not his fleet of soldiers that Joab was over, that he was commanding, the hundreds and the thousands. It's 30 men. David probably entertained with these men closely And he probably had events at the temple and things like that, or his palace or whatever. And these men probably came over. It was a tight-knit group. 30 men is not a lot of men. I work with 30 people on the farm. Okay, so Eliam apparently had been with David from the time he was in the wilderness before he had became king. Right, Eliam is one of the 30 mighty men. Verse 13 says that 3 of these men brought David water while he was living in the cave of Adullam after fleeing from Saul. I'm assuming from the wording and wording of 2 Samuel 23 and 13 that the 30 were already in existence at this time. 1 Samuel says that David had 400 men with him then. We don't know when this was exactly, but let us assume David was 27. Eliam would have been 19. Even if Eliam had not yet become part of the 30 at this time, clearly he became one early in David's reign. For that was a time when the wars were fought, and only during such wars could he emerge as one of the mighty men. What does it mean? It means that Bathsheba grew up around the palace of David. What did I say, guys? I didn't even read this part yet. But what did I tell y'all, guys? She was 2 years old on our scheme when David became king. Her father and grandfather were often at the palace. David knew them intimately. Did David bounce Bathsheba on his knee when she was a little girl? Oh my gosh, God, I'm going to be sick. It is hard to imagine that he did not. Knowing David, I imagine he often got down on the floor and horsed around with the little kids of the court. I'll bet David even burped Bathsheba on his shoulder when she was an infant. I don't want to buy that one, guys. But I could see the other story as being plausible, like him getting down and playing with the kids in the royal court. Bathsheba grew up in awe of David, the man after God's own heart, the author of the Psalms, God's anointed leader. All her life, she had viewed him as one of Israel's preeminent spiritual leaders. She had heard him speak of the Lord many times. She had heard her father and grandfather praise him. So when David called for her, she came. I doubt if she'd come if Ahab had summoned her. Why did David have to ask who she was? At the age of 50, his eyesight had doubtless begun to diminish. She was at some distance, and he could only see her general form. But note that she lived near enough to the palace to be spied. One again shows that she and her husband were closely associated with the court. What did I say, guys? Right. This article is showing you guys exactly what I just said. They had to have been closely associated. This was his men of 30, man. This was a small-knit group. Moreover, the former of the answer David received, is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Verse 3 indicates that the man assumed David knew her. Oh, you know that is David. That's Bathsheba. What did David say to her? We can only imagine, but I suppose it went like this. Trust me, this isn't wrong. I'm the king, after all. And Bathsheba trusted him. After all, unlike the ordinary Israelites, David had lots of wives and concubines. He wasn't supposed to, of course, but he did. Kings, Bathsheba knew, were different from ordinary people. Could Bathsheba read? Did she have her own copy of the Torah to read? Doubtless not. Few people bothered to learn to do so in the pre-Gutenberg world, and there surely weren't a lot of copies of the Torah around. What she knew of spiritual matters came from men like David. If David said it was all right for her to sleep with him, she had no reason to question him, or at least not much of one. Now, if I had been successful, this is the closing of this person's article. Let's see what they got to say. Now, if I've been successful, I've exonerated Bathsheba of serious wrongdoing. Hers was a sin of being led astray. At the same time, David's sin becomes much more serious than before. It was not only the sin of adultery, but the sin of leading one of God's little ones astray. Nathan seems to imply as much as when he says the rich. No, he killed. He had Uriah killed an innocent man. The story is that of David's fall. David, unlike Adam, was a king, a leader, and a guide and a teacher. Okay, they're going to get off now to start glorifying um, David in this article. So I think I'm done with this article. Yeah. Oh, David encouraged Uriah to violate the laws of war and sleep with his wife while the ark was in the field. Okay. Well, the conclusion. Let's see what the conclusion says. Several things emerge from our examination of the evidence. First, we see something of the intimate relationship between Ahithophel, Eliam, Uriah, David, and Bathsheba. Okay, well, he's going to say that she's innocent of any wrongdoing. I don't buy that, personally. All right, I think I'm done with this article. I think that article did a really good job of highlighting what transpired. Right, we got just a few little lines in 2 Samuel concerning David and Bathsheba's sin, right? But like I told you, it was a lot like a soap opera. And as you could see from that article we just read, right? It was very much so. All right, let me bring this back up to the front because I want to know that I've read that already. All right. We read this one too already, guys. Okay. So, guys, let's look at, let's go back to First Kings for a second because I want to remind you guys of the conversation between Bathsheba and David. When Bathsheba is trying to get David to put Solomon on the throne, right? Remember, her and Nathan scheme, and she decides she's going to go in there and she's going to tell David she's going to go in there and tell David that he swore to her before. Here we go. Well, that's him believing her. Hold on. I want to get her specific words. Okay. I want to get where she tells him. Here we go. Verse 16. Okay, where are we in? And Bathsheba bowed and did obedience with the king. And the king said, What wouldest thou? And she said unto him, My lord, thou swearest by the Lord thy God unto thine handmaid, saying, Assuredly Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne. I told you guys, Bathsheba doesn't claim the God of Israel, guys. The Lord, here we go, right here. She does not. She says the Lord thy God, okay? She is telling David, remember, you swore to your God. Now, why would someone say something like that if this was her God too? Wouldn't she say, hey, you swore to our God, David, that, you would have Solomon reign, right? Well, first of all, she wouldn't have been doing any of the scheming. That's why she didn't swear to our God, because she's not a righteous woman, guys. Clearly not. I don't care if she was only 20 years old when her husband was called out to the field. I think that she was accountable enough in age to have known that this was a man that didn't deserve that had done nothing to deserve to die in a field. As far as I'm concerned, she's equally as guilty as David. And the behavior only gets worse. So I'm not surprised. I am not surprised that she is not righteous. She says right here, my Lord. She calls David my Lord. David is her Lord, actually. Okay, that's why the Creator is not her Lord, because she's too busy idolizing a man and putting a man before her Creator. She says right here, my Lord, thou swearest by the Lord thy God. Okay, so the God of Israel is not her God. Make a note of that, guys. Make a note that she's an adulteress. And then we understand why Nathan needed to advise her, right? Because Nathan told her that if he didn't get to counsel her, that she might not be able to save her life or the life of her son. That's why. Okay, guys, so let's get into let me move this article up here so I know we touched on that already. That's going to be my new method. Let me just move some articles around, guys. I want to get into, let's look at her pedigree real quick, guys. Because I told you there was something very strange about her name, right? And look, guys, we see that relation again to Ferdinand I, right? Right through Bathsheba. Didn't we cover Ferdinand I, the Holy Roman Emperor? Wasn't he the one that wanted to wipe out all of the Saracens? I like to look at the genealogies, guys. It really gives you an idea of what was going on. Menelik I, that's the whole Keber Nagas, all of these fables that came out of Ethiopia that claimed that they had the Ark of the Covenant there, and the Ethiopian Jews. All of this comes from under Bathsheba right here. We're seeing a line. Okay, guys? It's really good that you guys sometimes go back and look at some of this stuff to get an idea, because I want to dig on her even more. There is something with Bathsheba that is implied in her name, and I'm going to have to show you guys that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to show you guys that right now. Okay, let's go to the name. But here was the funny thing. I saw her name as spelled two different ways. That's what was so funny about it. Let's talk about it right here. Bathsheba, also spelled Bathsheba in the Hebrew Bible, right? She's the wife of Uriah the Hittite. She later became one of the wives of King David and the mother of King Solomon. Bathsheba, or Bathsheba, right, was a daughter of Eliam and was probably of noble birth. Not probably. We found out that she was. A beautiful woman, she became pregnant after David saw her bathing on a rooftop and had her brought to him. I like how they just skip on over that, like as if she was a free woman. David then ordered that Uriah be moved to the front line of a battle. We like it on the front line, where he was killed. David married the widowed Bathsheba, but their first child died as punishment from God for David's adultery and murder of Uriah. David repented of his sins, and Bathsheba later gave birth to Solomon. When David was dying, Bathsheba successfully conspired with the prophet. You see what he's saying? She successfully conspired with the prophet Nathan to block Adonijah's succession to the throne and to win it for Solomon. She occupied an influential position as Queen Mother. Didn't I tell you guys that we were going to get into that term when it pertained to Bathsheba. This was an influential position, okay, guys? This was not a position where they just say, oh, it's the Queen Mother. She's showing up today. No. The Queen Mother had a lot going on. She got to make a lot of decisions and stuff, guys. You're going to see. All right, guys. And this is the blood that's running through Solomon's veins, okay? And you mean to tell me that you think this is who the Creator wanted to sit and represent Israel? You think this is a righteous woman? You think her seed is a righteous seed? Based on what we've read in the Torah so far. Base it off of the Torah, guys. Don't base it off of me. Base it off of what the Torah is telling you. All right, she's the Queen Mother, guys. Let's get into that Queen Mother role, right? I told you guys about that Queen Mother role. This is not a passive role, guys. This is a role where you are doing stuff, okay? Let's talk about it. There was a word associated with it. There's a Jewish word associated with it, a so-called Jewish Hebrew word associated with it. Hebrew word lessons, right? I hate that word. Queen Gabira, Malka, the queen. Queen Malka, feminine noun, Strong's. Malik, verb, to become queen or king. You know, I named my son Malik, and I was always told it was just king, but it says here to become queen or king. All right, Strong's. Gabira, lady, queen, mother, feminine. Okay, feminine noun. All right. It says here he's a Canadian, a member of the Commonwealth, and a descendant of United Emperor of Loyalists, which means I'm Canadian because some of my ancestors left the newly found United States. In order to remain loyal to the British Crown, because of our historical roots, my parents instilled in me a great respect for our Queen. Tomorrow, Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II will be buried alongside her parents, her sister, her late husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Whether you're part of the Commonwealth or not, Queen Elizabeth stood as a woman of impeccable character. So they say. Why was going to say, why in the world did I download this article right here? But now I realize why. Just to get to this part, I did not need to read about Queen Elizabeth, child. But sorry, I took you guys through that. I wanted to look at queens in the Bible. So foreign queens of the Bible. The words for queen only show up only occasionally in the Hebrew Bible, and it was used to describe only a handful of women. The Queen of Sheba, Vashti, Queen of Persia, Esther, Jewish Queen of Persia, Daphnis, Queen of Egypt, and Candace, Queen of the Ethiopians. Note that these women were all queens of foreign lands. Esther was the only one of Jewish descent, but she was a queen in Persia, not Israel. So, this was just for me. This was just for me to show you guys some of these queens that were mentioned in the book, but not so much as to be queen mothers, right? Queens of Israel and Judah, the Queen of Sheba, Queen Candace of Ethiopia, Daphnis, Queen of Egypt, Vashti, Esther, Queen of Persia, were all queens of Gentile nations. But Israel and Judah also had reigning women who were consorts to the king. None of Saul's, David's, or Solomon's wives were described as queens, but it was implied. We know that their wives held some weight in court. Bathsheba confronted her husband David at the end of his life as an advocate for her son Solomon. She made sure that David named Solomon as the next king, even though David had older sons to choose from. Unfortunately, some of the queen's consorts that stand out the most in the Bible stand out because of their wickedness. Jezebel was a Phoenician princess who married Ahab, king of Israel, and became his consort. Foreign wife. She was consistently wicked and encouraged pagan worship, just like the Torah told us they would. The writers of the Hebrew Bible never graced her with the royal title of queen. Athaliah, Jezebel, and Ahab's daughter, was married to Jehoram, king of Judah. When her son died, Athaliah essentially elected herself as queen of Judah. Isn't that nice? Athaliah's reign consisted mostly of murdering male royal children in order to maintain the throne for herself. However, she missed one child who hid in secret, and it caused her downfall. Yes, I want to get to the Geberah. This is why I got this article, guys. Geberah, royal lady, queen mother. Another word that indicates queenship was Geberah, as opposed to Geber, meaning lord. This term, indicating a royal lady, was most widely used to describe the queen mother, mother of the reigning sovereign. For example, this description was used for Maacah, the mother to King Asa of Judah. Now, Asa did what was right in the sight of the Creator, like his father David. He also removed the male cult prostitutes from the land. Great job. And removed all the idols which his father had made. And his mother Maacah, he also removed her from the position of the queen mother because she had made an abominable image as an Asherah. And Asa cut down her abominable image and burned it at the brook Kidron. The prophet Jeremiah also used the term Geberah to highlight the downfall of Judah's royalty when Babylon would destroy Jerusalem. All right, so Jeremiah 13:16-18 says here, give glory to the Creator your God before he brings darkness and before your feet stumble on the dusky mountains. While you're hoping for light, he makes it into the deep darkness and turns it into gloom. But if you will not listen to it, my soul will sob in secret for such pride, and my eyes will bitterly weep and flow down with tears because the flock of the Creator has been taken captive. Say to the king and the queen mother, take a lowly seat, for your beautiful crown has come down from your head. At the Babylonian invasion, the leaders of Judah and their wives and families would have fallen hard, such as King Joachim and his queen Nehushta. At her husband's death, Nehushta became queen mother to King Joachim of Judah. Together they were defeated and exiled to Babylon. Their crowns fell from their heads, just as the prophet Jeremiah had predicted. Look who it is. The real monarch. That's hilarious. All right, so I just want to show you guys that there is a term as such called the queen mother, right? And is she not already raised up? I mean, it is her blood flowing through this man's veins, right? It's her ex, her mom's ex, possibly. It's a few things going on here. But like I said, this is the ex of a woman who does not claim the God of Israel, who schemed to get her son on the throne. Clearly not a righteous woman. Let's see what's in this article, guys. So I usually will just go through and gather up articles that I think will be helpful to our study. Oh yeah, this looks like a good one here, right? Queen. The Hebrews had no word properly asmerring to our term queen in the sense of a female sovereign. neither had they the dignity which that word denotes. Of the three Hebrew terms used as the equivalent of queen, is Malaka, right? Sounds like Malik, right? Is applied to the queen regent, the first and second shigel, equally to a queen consort, without, however, implying the dignity which in European nations attaches to that position, and the third, Gabira, to the queen mother, to whom that dignity is transferred in Oriental courts. The etymological force of the word accords with their application. I'm so tired, guys. I'm sorry. When I start getting tired, I start messing up words. So you can always tell if you're following along with me and I start messing up words more that Shamar is tired. But Shamar is in this to win it. Let's go, guys. We got to get this study done. I need you guys to understand. All right, so we already got a reference to Oriental courts, right? So we're going back a little bit to the people, the place, just a little bit, right? We cannot ignore that this says the Oriental court. Okay, the etymological force. I said it better when I wasn't trying to say it. Force of the words accords with their application. Malka is the feminine of Melech, which is king. It is applied in its first sense to the Queen of Sheba, and in its second to the chief wife as distinguished from all other females in a royal harem. The term princesses is similarly used in 1 Kings, right? Shigel simply means wife of the first rank, as distinguished from mere concubines. It is applied to Solomon's bride or perhaps mother, and to the wives of the first rank in the harems of the Chaldee and the Persian monarchs. Gabera, on the other hand, we're right here, guys, is the expressive of an authority. It means powerful or mistress, being the feminine of Gibber, which is master or lord, right, guys? Which, remember, they were calling David my lord. So if it's the Gabera, and if that's synonymous with, well, it's the feminine to Gabir, right? Gabira is the feminine to Gabir, which is Lord. And David was getting his props every which way, left and right. My Lord, my Lord, my Lord. So if this is the feminine of that, then this is a high rank. Okay, guys? The feminine is to be understood by its relation to the masculine, which is not applied to kingly power or to kings, but to general authority and dominion. All right? It is, in fact, the word which occurs twice with reference to Isaac's blessing of Jacob. Be Lord over thy brethren, and I have made him thy Lord. It would therefore be applied to the female who exercise the highest authority. And this, in an Oriental household, is not the wife, but the mother of the master. Strange as such an arrangement at first sight appears, it is one of the inevitable results of polygamy. The number of the wives, their social position previous to marriage, and the precariousness of their hold on the affections of their lord combine to annihilate their influence, which is transferred to the mother, as being the only female who occupied a fixed and dignified position. Hence the application of the term Gabera to the Queen Mother, the extent of whose influence is well illustrated by the narrative of the interview of Solomon and Bathsheba. The term is applied to Maacah, Asa's mother, who was deposed from her dignity in consequence of her adultery, to Jezebel, as contrast with Joram, the children of the king and the children of the queen, and to the mother of Joachim and Jeconiah. The text perhaps requires emendation. The reading followed in... Oh, this is getting boring, guys. Let me see. I'm trying to glean what we need from it. The limited use, let me write here, the limited use which is made even of the restricted term of Gabura is somewhat remarkable. It is only employed twice with a reference to the wife of a king. In one of these two cases, it is applied to the wife of the king of Egypt, where the condition of the royal consort was more queenly than in Palestine, and in the other to Jezebel, the wife of Ahab, who was the daughter of a powerful king. Okay, she appeared to have enjoyed peculiar privileges in her matrimonial state. Okay. Yeah, I just want you guys to get very familiar with that term Queen Mother and with the understanding. Here we go. The power of the Queen Mother right here. I was going to say something about that power, right? Understanding that the Queen Mother possessed power. Okay. If you remember when Adonijah doesn't get to reign, he actually comes to see Solomon, and it's actually Bathsheba that is commanding him and telling servants what to do and things like that. So we actually get to see her demonstrate her power on the very throne itself, guys. We've seen that for ourselves. Read this one already. I want to look at the name for Bathsheba. Because, guys, I'm telling you something here. There's something behind this woman. And her family line is all I can think of. And to have my story the way I kind of envisioned it, that no, they would have had to have interacted. He would have had to have seen her before. And then for that writer of the other story to say the exact same thing, guys, come on, guys. This is not a book that you just read and you don't apply reasoning to it or try to kind of like solve some of these stories. You have to, walk away and think about what you read. Okay, so that name Bathsheba was like really, really bugging me because I'm like, I've never seen her name written that way. I've only seen it written as Bathsheba, which is already a strange, peculiar name, right, guys? All right. So I looked up Bathsheba, right? And the origin is Hebrew. The meaning is daughter of oath. Bathsheba, as a girl's name, is of Hebrew origin, and the meaning of Bathsheba is daughter of oath. Bathsheba is a variant of the Hebrew name Bathsheba. Okay, guys. I wanted to share that with you guys to let you guys know that there is definitely something more than meets the eye as it concerns Bathsheba and her ex and the ex that she has and the epigenetic memory that she has handed down to her throne hijack, Solomon. I think I've shown you guys that he was not appointed. And I think this is how I want to bring you guys in to some of the things that took place in his kingship. And in order to do that, we've already paid attention to David, right? I wanted today to pay attention to his mother because she is the queen mother, guys. David dies. Bathsheba is sitting on the throne that was given to us by the God of Israel, the very God that she does not claim. I want to close with that, guys, because if she doesn't claim the God of Israel, who are they worshiping? Who is her and her son worshiping? Guys, you have to get an understanding that she says right here in verse 17, and she said unto him, My Lord, thou swearest by the Lord thy God unto thine handmaid, saying, Assuredly, Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne. And we know that David anoints him and David appoints him. this is how I wanted to prepare to get into that kingship, guys, because it's very important that we do that. But before we could get into his kingship, we had to get into his genealogy. We had to get into his cells, right? Because I told you guys there is a cellular war taking place. Much love to you guys from the front line. Thank you guys for pulling up a chair and coming on down to the cabin. And know that I am going to build the presentation for Solomon. I do apologize. I did say we were going to get into the branches this week, but I wanted to not leave you guys in limbo for too long, and I knew that I could tackle this Bathsheba story and bring it on home for you guys, so you guys can get a good understanding of what's in his veins, what kind of epigenetic inheritance Solomon has inherited, right? All right, guys. So I'll see you guys next week at the cabin. Much love. Happy birthday to my good friend Gardenia, Shoshana. She turned. We won't get into how old she turned, but she's on the East Coast, and I wish I could have given her a hug for her checkpoint. You know, she just made a milestone, so I'm very proud of her, and happy for everybody that's in my corner and been pushing me forward. But most importantly, I am eternally thankful to my Creator who has revealed things to me in this Torah that were not revealed to me previously, and were not revealed to anyone else. So I'm thankful for that. Much love, guys. I look forward to seeing y'all next week, and I'm so sorry for this late study, but I appreciate you guys for pulling up a chair. I'm tired. You hear it, guys, right? Much love, guys. I got to go down to the farm tomorrow and move those babies. So have a good night, guys. Take care.